Hey everybody, Kayla Lindsay with the True Lane Group, brokered by eXp Realty. Today we're going to talk about due diligence versus earnest money. What is that? I get this question all the time when I'm working with buyers and they're trying to figure out what they have to put down from a financial perspective in order to get a property. So the first misunderstanding that I have with this particular concept is you don't need to put money down to make the offer. You only have to put money down once the offer is accepted. So what is due diligence money? How much do you have to put down? When do you have to put it down? When you get an offer accepted on a property, meaning you are the buyer for this property, you're going to go through a process called due diligence. Due diligence, there's no set date for it. Usually it's about 20 days, and that's when you can get your inspections done, get the appraisal done, and get any repair requests that you want into the seller to see if you want to still move forward. Now, the reason why we have due diligence in both North and South Carolina is because you as the buyer actually have more power in the transaction than the seller does. From a buyer's perspective, you can walk away from the transaction at any time for any reason without penalty, except you're going to lose the money you put down. So with that being the case, being you can walk away, the seller wants to have some kind of reason to tell them, yes, you are going to stick through this process until the end and purchase this home. So you put due diligence money down. How much? Well, that's going to vary. Honestly, as of right now, we're seeing so many multiple offers that if you are in a situation where you're between about $150,000 and $300,000 for an offer price, you're probably going to be putting down somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000. I have seen it as high as $3,500 just because it's competitive. And sometimes to due diligence money is what you can start negotiating to show you're more serious than another buyer, even if you're putting down the same offer. So the same offer price, higher due diligence, right? So what happens with this money? Well, when you go under contract, your due diligence money and your earnest money could be $1,000, $2,000. It depends on the deal, and you would lean on your agent to advise you contract to contract. This money, once you go under contract, the due diligence is going to go directly to the seller. Because again, you're thanking the seller for taking it off the market and giving you an opportunity to look closer at the house. It's skin in the game. The earnest money, which is the second amount, is going to go to the attorney. The attorney is going to hold on to that money until it's time to close. Now, the only other time the earnest money comes into play, and the reason we put that in up front, is if you choose to back out of the property. Let's say you've gone through everything, you've made your requests to the seller for repairs, and the seller said yes or no, and you decide that you don't want to move forward with the transaction. If you back away and drop out of the contract before 5 p.m. on the date of due diligence, you get your earnest money back. So the earnest money held by the attorney, you get back. The due diligence money, you never get back. You've paid it. It's going either to the seller or towards the purchase. Now, if you back out of the contract after the due diligence date, that is when you also forfeit your earnest money. So you're forfeiting your due diligence and your earnest money. They both go to the seller because you backed out of the contract that you signed. Remember, the seller does not have any power to back out of the deal at any time. The most that they can do is tell you what repairs they are willing to make and what they're not willing to make, and that is about it. So if you back out after 5 p.m., when you turn into a pumpkin at 5 p.m. on due diligence, that's when you lose your earnest money as well. That goes to the seller. Now, you might be thinking, well, what happens to this money if I close? Great question. When you close, if you move forward with the transaction, let's say you put $2,000 in due diligence and $1,000 in earnest money for a total of $3,000 down on the property with this offer. If you go to the closing table, that $3,000 is credited to you as prepaid money. Meaning if you needed $10,000 in order to close between your closing costs and your down payment, you only have to bring to the table $7,000. So the difference between the 10 and the 3,000 you already paid, you only bring an additional 7. So due diligence and earnest money are wonderful things. It can set you apart when you're in a multiple offer situation to make sure you get ahead and get your offer accepted. But from a standpoint of a seller, it's also good to pay attention to who's willing to bring more to the table sometimes, because that'll show you who's more serious about buying a home. There's winners to both sides of this instance. And when it comes to due diligence and earnest money and being the powers in the side of the buyer to walk away at any time, you need to put something up front to show you are going to follow through. This is Kayla Lindsay with the True Lane Group. If you're finding us on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and click that little subscribe button down at the bottom on either side here. And make sure you click on the little bell so whenever we post new information, you get a first look at it. Thanks, everybody. You could follow us at Kayla Lindsay Realtor or check out the True Lane Group here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Have a good one.